Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning into another episode of Mind, Body, and Roots. Today I have the lovely Dr. Amrita Patel, who I had the pleasure meeting of very recently, and another endeavor that I had taken. Dr. Patel is a general dentist. She practiced in a little bit in a town in South Dakota for a little bit, and she's going back to New York to handle a couple of practices that her father previously owned. I will let her introduce herself as I cannot do her justice. So without further ado, Dr. Patel.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you this Sunday evening. So, you got my life in a nutshell. I'm a general dentist from New York. I went into private practice with my father, who's an endodontist. We built a group of family owned specialty and general dental practices here in Westchester County, New York, together. I also spent a lot of time during kind of my 0 to 10 years out of dental school. So, my new dentist years being very involved in volunteer leadership within organized dentistry. So, I chaired the new dentist committee for the New York State Dental Association. I now lecture nationally, which is really awesome. You mentioned South Dakota. So, for anyone that's wondering how a hardcore New Yorker got to the Midwest, I got sent to the South Dakota Dental Association annual meeting a few years ago to help with some programming. And they very nicely set their state's dental association's president elect to pick all the speakers up at the airport. And we got married last year. So I have a organized dentistry love story. My husband, also a general dentist, he had a daughter in high school, so she has since graduated, and we get to come home, which is awesome. So it's my last couple years in a nutshell.
Awesome, Dr. Patel. That is such a wild story, but let's start at the beginning. Where did you, so you grew up in Westchester,
Grew up in
but okay, but tell me from there all the way to where you are now. Like, what is that linear timeline like or crazy timeline like?
Yeah, I went to Fordham for undergrad, NYU for dental school, like you. And I did a GPR out on Long Island and came right back to Westchester. And I was never going to leave. We built
Mm.
these practices together largely because we saw a need. There was people coming and traveling from far away to see us because we have a group, so we don't really refer anything out. We're not a referral based practice, and we get some referrals in, but not a ton. And so we started acquiring other locations and expanding all within Westchester County. And it was great, but I always knew that I wanted to do more than clinical practice. And dentistry has given my family obviously so much, not just kind of in life professionally, but also personally. And I thought, what should I do with my time, right? I have this platform, I have time, what should I do? And I thought that maybe being a little vulnerable and kind of sharing my stories, my highs and my lows with what we identify as sometimes the most vulnerable demographic in dentistry. That, like I said, that early career dentist that has so many options, that doesn't necessarily always have guidance in place, whether it's because of, with family or mentors. And so that's kind of how I got involved in volunteer leadership within organized dentistry, which gave me a great platform for many, many years. And it was a great season of my career. And so that was kind of the lead up to the story I told.
Fair enough. So, is there anything about your story that you would do differently? And if so, why?
I would say that I wish there's a couple things. I wish that I would have majored in something that was not science in undergrad because I there were so many courses to take and I could have still taken my prereqs and other science courses, but there's so much to learn about, right? And
Mhm.
I always say that the more you learn about, the more you get more specialized and take more continuing education and kind of do more in your career, the less you sometimes realize that there's a whole world around you, right? So much going on. And I wish that I maybe would have majored in something else or done a minor in just I was really interested in history, in Egyptology, in archaeology, just there's anything you wanted, right? Like, and that opportunity was there. So I do wish that I would have maybe done some introspection earlier on and said, hey, like, nurture this interest you have within yourself. I wish that I would have done a residency outside of New York. And I say this to people that ask me. I think it's very important to evaluate residencies because they're not all made the same. But when else are you going to get a chance to go live somewhere else, better yourself, and even though you're not getting paid tons of money, still get paid for it, right? So I probably wish that I would have gone a little bit outside of my comfort zone and left the New York area for that. Yeah, I'd say those are probably the two big ones.
If okay, so if you could have went to any state outside of New York, what would it have been and why?
I've always been really interested in the Pacific Northwest. I think there's a lot of kind of deserts of care, if you will, like places that there's a really big need out there. It's obviously a beautiful part of the country. And I think just kind of where I was at that point in my life, that was something that was on my radar. And I just wasn't brave enough to say, let's do it. I sort of stayed within what I knew, which I think a lot of us do.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, a lot of people, I wish there's something you could teach actually, is that be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because I think that allows you to grow at your fastest pace. You know, when I told you I moved to Missouri, people were like, "You're crazy. You're nuts." I was just like, "I got nothing to lose. Let's just be different. Let's go figure it out." And that first couple of months was hard. I tell people, I was like, "Man, I don't know anybody. I don't and didn't know anyone." But I slowly got out of my shell. It just took time. But you're right. Like, I think I'm glad that the life events that happened prior to this, it kind of forced me to do that. And I was like, you know what? This is kind of a cool opportunity. So I completely agree with you. Now, your practices. How many do you have? When did you start building them? And what kind of gave you that spark to expand? Like, what was that little itch in you that was like, you know what? We could make this better and bigger.
So I think I'll start kind of at the beginning. And for anyone watching, this is the caveat. And I'm sure you can speak to this because your boss has multiple practices. Multiple practices sometimes come with just expanding numbers of issues, right?
Mhm.
Like it doesn't, yes, you might have multiple income streams, you might have an opportunity to serve different populations and different communities, but multiply the issues and challenges that we all run into in our daily lives by however many practices you have. Even the people with the best systems, listen, at the end of the day in dentistry, systems in our profession all depend on people, right? And people are not robots. People have individuality, they have a voice, they have opinions. And as great of a boss as you can be, and as much as you might want to expand and grow, there is a human and a cultural side to systems that is very important to kind of not forget. So I would say kind of the itch you asked about, like the motivation was, hey, we have a really good thing going here and we think that we can bring this to other parts of our area. Another thing I would say is for people that are wanting to own, period, not just own multiple practices, just own, is it's really important, and this is something I learned along the way, to do your due diligence very carefully. And what do I mean by that? Well, we are not professionals when it comes to accounting, right? Or legal issues or knowing how to delve into the books of a practice and what it means. And I see so many times, and I'm sure you do as well, people asking questions on dental social media that should really be answered by a professional, right?
Yes.
And not just crowdsourced online. I'll give you an example, and we won't use any names of specific insurance companies, but there's a big insurance company out there that offers benefits at a premier level and a PPO level. So the big difference for anyone that's watching is that your reimbursement at that premier level, even as a general dentist, it's about 30 to 40% higher on average around the country than at a PPO level. So let's say you want to buy a practice and you look and wow, they're getting great reimbursement for their crowns, for their endo, for their implants. This is great. And then you find out that they are a premier practice. Doesn't premier designation is not attached to the brick and mortar of the practice. It's attached to the doctor's NPI. So when they sell, there's little to zero guarantee that you are going to have a similar designation. I told you the difference is 30 to 40%. So you have to factor that in when you look at what the sale of this practice is going to look like and what it's actually going to cost. And if you don't, that's a very expensive mistake
Correct.
because you could do the same procedures, you could have the same skill set, and you will never be able to replicate that because it's just too big of a margin. What were you saying?
Yeah. No, that's good. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah. We try not to specifically name call, but back to the motivation, I think it was that we knew that we had a workable system and we knew that we wanted to bring care to kind of other parts of our area. Yes, it was very helpful that I had a father that was a dentist, and now that I have a husband that's a dentist, right? The family business is great. It's not always great though, because you never really leave business at work. It just follows you everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere. I was sitting at dinner with my mother, my father, and my husband on Friday at an Indian restaurant, and we're trying to decide what to order, and they're talking about cases. And I just looked at my mother like, I don't want to talk about this on a Friday night. It doesn't end. It doesn't end. But that's kind of my why or how, and a couple quick caveats. I just, if I could tell you one thing from that piece, this piece of my life, it's to make sure that you don't discount the human side of systems and really figure out what that means for you, because the most well run systems in dentistry still depend on people.
Yeah. And I think dentistry as well is it's very people based because our patients also come with very different personalities and different problems. And not only are we dentists when we sit down or stand up when we do surgery, microsurgery, I'd like to add, which gets very deeply discounted by people. We're also their therapist, their psychiatrist. We're a lot of things to them.
Yeah.
And people forget that part, and I think that's what really genuinely makes dentistry very hard. And I just wish that, I mean, insurance companies will never understand it, but I just wish that when you get into dental school or you start practice, someone kind of pulls you to the side and tells you, hey, this is not an easy profession. Be ready because it's going to hit you like a rock.
And it's not easy no matter how much support you have, how much
Hmm.
mentorship you have. If you have a family, it's not easy, right? You hit it right on the head. You feel like a therapist. You feel like you have to be a boss. You have to be a doctor. You are someone's kid. You're someone's spouse, maybe. You might have kids of your own. Like by the end of the day, your head is spinning, right? Sometimes that part is more challenging to manage than the actual procedural work.
Hmm.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you. And if I could go back in time and tell myself, hey, be ready for this, I would introspectively. Like I really would. Because in school they don't touch on it at all. I mean, they talk to you about, emotional intelligence being so important, and what's it called when you uh there's like a interview style that they used to talk about. I can't remember NYU specifically, but it was so irrelevant that I was just like, you just need to get to know people. I think that's the biggest thing. But my point is, it gets harder, I think, especially well, it gets harder, it gets easier as you go on, but I think that new challenges arise with the different types of personalities you have. And like you were saying, it doesn't matter how good of a system you have, if you don't hire the right people and don't understand their why, because, good leaders, being a dentist, like being a practice owner, if you don't understand that why, the system will always fail if you don't have the right people in place.
Right. Yeah. And we are totally people dependent as much as AI is coming for all of us.
Yeah, see, and the thing is, people use AI as a crutch right now, and I know patients do, and even I do, like in my radiograph reading sometimes, as a supplemental thing. It's just a normal
Mhm.
progression of technology, nothing you could do about it. But you also have to realize that the profession doesn't change necessarily from that standpoint, it just evolves. And I think that's the biggest thing,
Like
you know?
everything in life should, and like hopefully we are too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you had any advice for someone coming out of school today, 2025, 2026, tuition year, what three pieces of advice would you have for them?
So the first one would be don't be myopic, don't miss the forest for the trees. I always tell people that the easiest way, in my opinion, to goal set and figure out what really drives you is to reverse engineer your life. What do I mean by
Hmm.
that? So if you know that you want to live in New York and you want to be a practice owner and you want to be in a specific part of the state and you know the kind of dentistry that you like doing, or maybe you think you know what you're interested in, start to make the connections as early as possible, right? Think about where you want to be and then go backwards from that. Because our world, right, like you said, our microsurgical world is measured in millimeters, or if you're my father, tenths of millimeters, right, to get it exactly right. And so it's so easy to just fold in on yourself and miss the forest for the trees. And then suddenly you're 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, and you're like, what is this hamster wheel I've been running around on? Why do I feel so unfulfilled? So stop and think about where you're going and how you need to get there, and then work backwards from there. That's the first thing I'd say. The next thing I'd say is find a mentor, and everyone says it, but here's what I'll tell you that I haven't heard before. Mentors are people that can give you information because they have a way of seeing things that you don't or can't yet, right? They've
Hmm.
made mistakes that you have not yet. They have had wins that you have not had yet. People always ask me, oh, if I need a mentor especially in dentistry, like, do I have to find a dentist? You don't. Mentors live their lives or conduct themselves in a way that maybe you aspire to. It doesn't have to be a dentist. And you can have different mentors through your life, and you can have multiple mentors at the same time. What's the worst that someone can say if you reach out wanting to have a conversation? I'm not interested. I'm busy. Okay. Right? Don't be afraid to ask. Find a mentor, find multiple mentors, and don't limit yourself to dentists as mentors because there's a lot to learn from so many different people. It's the second thing I would say. And the third thing I would say is be teachable. You don't know what you don't know, and there is a lot to learn out there. The way that we consume data is ever evolving, and there's a lot of really high quality continuing education available out there in a variety of modalities, whether it's online, whether it's hybrid, whether it's in person, in this country, outside of this country. So get out there and learn, and don't ever think that you know everything.
Yeah. Those are really good, solid pieces of advice. And yeah, I think it's fantastic, especially points 2 and 3. Like, if it wasn't for the people that I've run into in my life, I would be where I am today. I'm very blessed to be where I am. Like, mentorship, like I can count. I think I have like at least 20 different mentors in 20 different parts of my life. A lot of them being dentists because I sit with a lot of dentists, but I also have people outside. And I think you hit number two on the head. People I meet or people I find inspiring. I'm like, hey, this might be super random, but would you be willing to mentor me? And I just asked them, and most people say, yeah, absolutely, because for them it's an honor. Like, they get to pass on knowledge and their mistakes to someone that's like hungry, and that's big for people. And then, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. Like, I know we talked about it last week, like, you don't like implants and surgery, right? I'm a junkie for it, and that's totally normal. But I didn't get there just sitting down and reading books. I talked to a lot of people that loved it, took the courses, spent thousands and thousands of dollars on it, but it's been something that I've grown passionate for. And that's something that I enjoy. I mean, I enjoy every aspect of dentistry, maybe not endo, which might disappoint your dad, but we all don't,
Yeah, you all have your
we
things.
we all have it. But, I still enjoy every part. And I think you really did nail it on the head. And I just wish younger people, especially the generation coming out with a lot of debt, would actually take the time to listen, because there's a lot of good information out there, especially like with dental nachos and organized dentistry. Because I think if you can extrapolate information and then use your current life experiences and mix it with that wisdom, you'll be very successful in life.
Yeah, and don't believe everything you read on social media, right? Like, we've got data that shows the median income for dentists in the country, right? I'm the ADA, the Health Policy Institute. This is what they do. They have data from tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dentists over the years. And
Hmm.
we know what the average incomes are. We know what the saturated areas are. We know what a lot of the procedures by breakdown is, the mix. We know demographics. We know who goes to the dentist in what state for what reason and what their primary concern is. So I think the other thing I hear a lot is people read dental social media and get very discouraged. And you have to understand that that's largely not reality. I mean, we if you, I have very open social media, and if you scroll through my social media from 5 to 10 years ago, you'd see a girl that was traveling the world and hanging out with her friends, and for all intents and purposes, looked like she was having the time of her life. And I was miserable, so unhappy with myself. And so this is what I'm telling you, and I've gotten to the point that I'm comfortable getting on a stage and saying that. But if you had looked then, you would have never thought that. So don't believe everything you see.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. Like, that's awesome that you actually admitted that. Like, a lot of people probably wouldn't say that, but that is pretty awesome. That just goes to show strength. And I think we need more people to say that, because you do see that on social media. You see the perfect cases and the perfect like implant and the perfect restoration, and you see people living their lives and driving amazing cars, and you're just like, man, am I like not doing enough? Am I doing too little? I see that all the time. I mean, in the beginning of my career, I thought the same. I'm not going to lie to you. But then I realized, it's just all a farce, and you just
Everyone has
gotta
to walk their own path. And
correct.
wherever your path will take you, and whatever you believe in, right? How much of that is preordained, how much of it is all your effort, whatever that is, everyone has their own path to walk. So don't ever look at someone else's and think, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong,
Yeah.
or I'll never get there. You will, but your definition of success doesn't necessarily match the next person's, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you've done all this stuff. What's next for you?
What's next for me? So we're transitioning my father's practices, which I'm very excited about.
Hmm.
I have sort of come into this growing national education platform, which I love so much, because largely the demographic of people that attend my lectures are new dentists, associates, and people that either want to own a practice or have just bought a practice. And so I love that I get to share my wins, but also my mistakes with them, uh, and educate dental teams as well. Because, like I said, there's so much our systems have such a cultural side to them. There has to be buy-in, like we talked about.
Hmm.
So I think kind of continuing to work on those things, but also, and this piece is very important to me, I fly a lot. I think I've already done 165 flights this year, and I maybe did 150 last year. It is crazy. But I always said, and this is how I live my life, that love shows up. Now, whether that means that you show up for a procedure you love by taking lots of CE, right, implants and surgery, or you show up for a friend that's having an event because you love that person and you want to support them, or you show up for a cause that's very important to you, love shows up. And so, intentionally carving out time for the things that I love and the people that I love, I think is what I'm going to make sure that I continue to make time for and focus on.
Yeah, that is a very awesome thing to say. And I think it really does. I mean, having the intention and understanding the various definitions of what love means, I think that's really cool. Like, just from that statement alone, I can tell you're a very introspective and very thought, like, inducing person, which is good. And I love those type of conversations because it just shows me and the audience who you are. And I think that's beautiful, you know? But I was like you, like, when I first came to Missouri, I had, like, 97 or 98 flights, and people were like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No," but I just enjoyed it. I mean, to be honest, I, like, reflected when this year started, I'm like, "I'm so exhausted, I never wanna get on a plane again." And this year I hit 45. I was like, "This is an okay number, I don't want any more than this." I was like, "I'm done." Like,
Yeah.
next year is, like, minimal. Like, I mean, besides going home, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna be very minimal. I'm so tired of traveling, it sucks.
Yeah. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Fair. So, okay, that part we've done. Now, what is one thing you love about dentistry, and what is one thing you absolutely hate about it?
I love that it's one of the best small businesses in healthcare out there.
Mhm.
And I hate that we have all gotten so competitive with each other that we collectively are missing the forest for the trees and being myopic. Like, there's so much growth, there's so much evolution going on. I think there's obviously always outside challenges to that, whether it's dental insurance or workforce shortages or whatever it is. And I think that we're so much stronger together. And so it's kind of disheartening to see the infighting amongst the groups and the disagreements and things. But I do still think that dentistry is one of the best small businesses out there in healthcare, particularly. And I'm kind of really excited to see that continue to be a thing.
Do you think, with everything that's going on with the ADA currently, and, like, I guess some of the state dental boards with the restructuring that a lot of them are going through, do you think that dentistry will end up like medicine? Like, will it be as fractured and, I guess, corporate owned is the word, as
Mm,
medicine has become, or do you think it will tread its own path?
I think that you will probably see a bigger percentage of dentistry go that way. I just don't think it's going to ever 100% be that way, right?
Mhm.
Dentistry just delivers care on such a different level in such a different way than medicine does.
Mhm.
For example, you can go to the doctor's office and have most of your visit done by other people, and the doctor come in to say, "This is the labs I'm ordering. Your blood pressure was okay. Your weight's okay. See you in a year." Dentistry is just not like that, right? Unless
Correct.
somehow, assistants and hygienists and FDAs and dental therapists get a whole bunch of kind of abilities to do things. Dentistry is never going to be that. So that's
Absolutely.
what I think.
Okay, fair. Like, because I've always struggled with that. Like, my dad's in medicine, and he's like, it all ends up being the same, but it's also very cyclical in nature. So, and then you see a lot of debates, um, and sometimes as, like, someone that loves the business side of dentistry, you start thinking, is it really worth it to own a practice? Do you, go partner with someone? Like, what's the motive? Like, what do you do when you're done being an associate? Like, when you've made that decision. So that's why I asked that question.
Well, I think there's people that are never done being an associate, and I think that's perfectly okay. That's
Hmm.
great, right? Not everyone wants to own a business, and
Hmm.
it's not for everyone, and that's
Correct.
okay. I would say understanding what it means to build a business is very important, and that's really hard to do until you're in the trenches, right? And
Hmm.
it's a lot all at once.
Hmm.
Partnerships are very tricky. Partnerships are very tricky, and you have to really think about it, kind of like a marriage, right? I mean, you're not that you're marrying your partner necessarily, but it's like that, except that there's potentially massive financial implications, which I guess there can be too if you get divorced. Most of the partnerships I see that go sideways are because expectations weren't outlined on the front end and because a reputable attorney didn't sort of facilitate the contracts, which, again, like we talked about, you got to consult a professional. But, for the people that are associates out there that think they might want to own a practice, don't get discouraged when you think about taking on all the debt, dental insurance reimbursements going down, the workforce shortages, and all these other things that we've talked about. There is help available for you. And there are people that are willing to have a conversation with you and sort of try to help guide you in the right direction. And that's another thing that's really beautiful about our profession, that you see it, right? People will say, "Oh, I'm having a hard time," and there'll be 50 responses saying, "Message me, like I'm happy to talk," or, "How can we help?" So that, I think, is a really, still a really beautiful part of our profession.
Fair. That makes sense. That's very good. So I think we've covered a good basis of, your foundation. So I kind of want to move on to like the body part. And this is more of a very generic, I would say, part of the show, but it's one that I like to kind of talk about because I think it's so central to who we are as human beings. And that's the body part. And it's, I'm not sure if you're into fitness, but in here, I'd like to talk more about fitness or spirituality. So, how do you stay mentally on top of everything that we've discussed so far? Do you, exercise? Do you do prayer? Are you spiritual? Like, just tell me about your bodily routines that keep you grounded in life.
I wake up at 5:55 and I go to Orange Theory at 6:30. And I curse my life for those 35 minutes between 5:55 and 6:30. But I got to tell you, a finished workout at 7:30 a.m. is one of the biggest motivators of my day. I go a little bit later on the weekends, but it kind of restarts and kickstarts your mind in a way that you hear people talk about it and you read about it, but you really don't really understand until it's kind of ingrained in you and it's your routine. And now look, you don't have to do some super high intensity thing. Sometimes I go to Pilates, sometimes I do yoga, sometimes I take a walk, sometimes it's a rest day, but intentionally waking up early and doing something for yourself before you go and give of yourself to everyone else, I think is really important. That's one way. And the other way is to learn how to be still and learn how to be bored, because it forces you to sit with your own thoughts, right? Without the phone, without the computer, without the TV, without all this outside stimulation. And it makes you sit with your own thoughts and really reflect and introspect, and then also look outward. And again, we talked about that, thinking forward, but also not losing sense of where you are. So those are the two things together that I think are very important to do, that I personally do.
Hmm. Fair. Yeah, I think for me, like I'm really into fitness. I get up at 5 or like 4:45, depends on how I sleep the day before, the night prior. But I think the exact same way in that sense that when you can take care of yourself and you do something for yourself, then you're able to fully give more towards others and your team and your even your patients, or your loved ones, if that's your thing. I've been doing that for about a decade now, since like early college. I think it has been the game changer is probably a little bit too broad of a term, but it's been probably the thing that has um, accelerated my growth as a person. So yes, I completely agree with you on that. And I wish more people would understand that. I mean, it's just about, I think in that 35 minutes for you and for me it's like 45 minutes. It's probably the most serene time in your life because no one's really talking to you, no one's really texting you, which is awesome. Yeah, I find a lot of peace in that.
Mhm. Yep.
Do you have any future goals to do anything more with that? Like, do you want to compete, or do you want to challenge yourself in the coming years somehow? Like, is there anything on the horizon goals wise?
So I read something the other day that I thought was very interesting, and it said that the deadlifts that you do in your 20s and 30s allow you to pick up suitcases and climb stairs in your 80s. So
Really?
yep. So think about it. You're developing your muscular strength, you're building your core strength, because as we age, we lose muscle. We know that, right? So it's really important to preserve all of as much of that as you can and build it. There was something else I read that said that, it's great to do lots of cardio, right? It's great to be active and aerobic exercise, but you also need to strength train. And I think for any women watching this, it's especially
Yeah.
important, right, for us. So while I'm not going to get on stage and be competing in any fitness competitions anytime soon, I will say that my goal is to stick with this routine and stay healthy, right? Because dentists, and I read this too, a statistic that we get disabled more frequently than we get divorced. And we know what the national divorce rate is, right? It's very high. So trying to stay active in a healthy way and make sure that you are fit, right? And feel good. And it's about so much more than just outwardly how you look. you need your core strength, right? You need to be able to brace yourself. You need to not be arching your back. You're standing doing surgery. You don't want to be doing one of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the same form we use when we lift weights, right? You want to make sure that your heels are planted. You don't want your feet coming up. So these things, especially in dentistry, are so important. So my goal is to stick with it and, like I said, continue to do this for as long as I possibly can.
I love that. And I think, funny enough, I think you are right. I think dentistry, like, I don't know if you know this about me, but I work for a loop company on the side, Bryant Dental. We sell ergonomic loops. It's one of my many side hustles. But one thing I've learned, because I talked to a lot of dentists, and they come to me like, Doc, like, my neck hurts, my back hurts. Where are you in your career? What makes you different, like, in terms of loops? The first thought that goes into my head is, before I even open the conversation about loops, like ergonomic loops and everything, my first question to them is, how do you stand? Do you work out? And if they can't answer those two questions, I tell them, I can't fix your problem with ergonomic loops. Doesn't matter how awesome, expensive, or how great I measure you. It has nothing to do with that. If you don't take care of yourself first, no piece of equipment, whether you buy it from me or you buy it from someone else, is going to help you. So start with that first, and then we'll talk. Because I think people forget that the neck, the back, and by back I mean lower back and upper back both, because it's all one big thing, as well as posture is so key. And it's just not taught. Like, we're taught ergonomics and ergonomics by people that don't work out, and they've old people in dental schools. Not many young people teach ergonomics. And I think it's such a misunderstood topic that if something doesn't feel right, adjust to what makes sense. I'm a competitive powerlifter. That's what I was back in college. Hurt myself a bunch of times because the big guys that were, me being Pakistani, I was a thin boned brown guy. We don't have a lot of bone density. But these big hurly kids from the Midwest slash, rural Pennsylvania are big and buff, and they're like, just put the weight on, like increase the weight and eat more. And the amount of times I hurt myself, my dad got pretty mad at me. He was like, stop doing dumb things. So I realized, hey, I can't keep lifting at this level. So what I will focus on is I will lift lighter, I will focus on flexibility, and I will focus on what I can handle, and I will push myself, but only if it feels right. And I apply that same logic to when I stand and do a lot of dentistry. I stand and do dentistry, like 90% of my dentistry standing,
Me
including
too.
fillings,
Me
extractions.
too. It always has
It
been.
just
Yep.
feels so good. But sometimes what I do is, like, when I'm standing and I feel like I'm doing something wrong, I actually kind of do like a sumo squat and I split my legs open and I just kind of get leverage that way. And my assistant's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I am." It's just this feels more natural to my body, like getting more leverage. Because again, if you don't take care of your body, it will haunt you in your 40s, 50s, and 60s as you progress in dentistry. And it only gets worse. That's the last thing I want,
Yeah, totally.
And I just wish more people understood that. Who knows?
Agreed.
But I don't know. I'll get off my soapbox now. Regardless. Okay, so we covered that part. Now, I want to move on to the more roots part of your story. So, obviously you're Indian, or you grew up as an Indian. And you grew up on, technically is the western part of New York, or central New York, I guess. Western.
Up 30 miles north of New York City.
Okay, so more northern New York. So what was that like? Was there a lot of diversity when you were in New York? Was it still kind of growing? Kind of talk to me about your childhood. Like, how was that like growing up?
Really no diversity
Mm-hmm.
then. There's a very large community now, which is
Mm-hmm.
nice, but there really wasn't then. My childhood best friend is still one of my best friends, which is a very special relationship that I'm thankful for. But
Mm-hmm.
really not a lot of diversity. My parents were probably one of the first South Asian families to move to the area that I grew up in. And so, just kind of by nature of that, as more and more families came to the area, they kind of became one of the sort of central places that people would hang out and socialize. So, my house was always full of families and kids here, which again was nice to kind of have around. But that was when I was older, not when I was younger. I was raised by my grandmother. Both my parents worked. And
Mm.
so English was not necessarily the first language I spoke well because she raised me. And so that's, like I said, not the first language I spoke well. But it was a very special relationship, right? And a interesting time of life to be able to have your grandma there with you all the time. And I didn't have, I wasn't going to daycare. I had her there. I will say that I was not the kid that like went and helped my dad out at the office all the time. I really wasn't like, I'm going to be a dentist. This is what I'm going to do. I got maybe a quarter of the way, halfway through college, and realized that I had enough credits taken that I could finish early. And I told my dad that I was going to take a year off and travel the world and find myself. And as the firstborn daughter in a South Asian family, you can imagine how well that went over.
Yep.
So he came home the next day and was like, you can pick between dental school and medical school to find yourself in. And I highly suggest you choose dental school because for the most part, no one dies of a toothache and you'll always have a job. So here I am. And so it was challenging for me, in dental school. So many of my classmates that had parents that were dentists were kind of in it, right? And they were so excited. And so people would ask me, like, oh, so you must have been going to the office with your dad. And I was like, no, not ever. But thankfully, I've been able to find things in dentistry that bring me joy, find things that I like doing. So it's been quite the adventure. But yeah, I grew up not very much diversity. Kind of, it almost felt like floating through life. Like, okay, I'll just sort of figure it out one day. I'll figure it out one day. And then it was like my parents laying the hammer down.
Yeah, I completely understand that sentiment. I had that exact conversation with my dad in high school, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you when we were talking with Nadia, but um, I always wanted to be a hospital CEO. That's why I have the business background. And my dad asked me, I think I'm at high school, I'm in college actually. Yeah, this is college actually, because it was like my second year. And he was like, "So what do you want to do with your life? Like, you're not really telling me." And I was like, "Well, I want to be a CEO of a hospital." And I will always remember that dead stare, like, and I remember that memory. And he's like, I've been a doctor for 35 years. I can tell you right now, no administrator, I will never respect any administrator. And it was just the coldest, like, 7 words I've ever heard from my dad. And he was like, please become a doctor. I don't care what kind of doctor. Just please look into it.
I don't care. I love that. I don't care what kind of doctor. Okay.
Yes. And here I am. And to be honest, funny enough, he never forced me into it, but I kind of just fell into it. Like, I did take 2 years off between college and dental school. I worked at a denture lab. I, ran a practice for one of our local dentists and local desi dentists in the area. I really got involved. And within that, I found my love for dentistry. Did dental school dissuade that love for dentistry? 1000%, because that's just miserable. But then it came back when I left. So yeah, I would agree. I think our parents always have a funny way of making things work, but I guess they have this intuition. And I guess when we become, you know, parents of our whatever future we have in store for us, we might do the same thing, but I'm not too sure. Not too sure.
Yeah, there's not a handbook for parenting, unfortunately,
No.
because if there was, it would be nice to have it. Everyone sort of just learns as they go.
Yeah, absolutely. So out of curiosity, what is your first language?
Gujarati. Maiden last name is Patel.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Now, I didn't want to ask this question, but did you marry a Gujarati person or?
No, so Jeff is as Midwestern as they come. So
I love that.
my married last name is Fayak. So there's another place that had no diversity at all. Do you know that I think they told me that I was the only licensed Patel in the history of the South Dakota State Board of Dentistry? I think they told
No
me that.
way.
Yeah, there's no diversity. There's two very big hospital systems there in Sioux Falls, and they have medical residency programs associated with them. So there's some diversity just because of that, because people match there. But just in terms of a very robust, diverse population, doesn't exist there. And my husband
Wow.
is older than me and Caucasian with a full head of gray hair. So you can imagine the looks we get.
How, again, I hope this, like, I mean, no disrespect, but how did you pull that off being the first and the oldest child? I'm the oldest child in my house. I don't know how did you pull that? Like, all
I
kudos
think
to you.
my parents had probably, I think, written me off as like the crazy dog lady. Like, oh, she's just never going to get married and she's just going to have like adopt all these dogs. And
Yeah.
so then when I found Jeff, and then he was a dentist and he was actually a nice guy, they were like, okay, take her.
I think it was a timing thing. They're just like, they got defeated. They're like, you know what? Let it
Totally.
go.
And the running joke we have now is that my mother calls him every day. Like, I'm convinced that they love him more than they love me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, he's an angel. And I got married later in life, and I for a long time felt like there was something wrong with me, and I wasn't ever going to find a someone that wanted to be my partner. And I don't know if you have read this or heard it, but Steve Jobs gave a commencement speech for Stanford in 2005.
Uh-huh.
We all know Steve's story, right?
Correct.
Apple kicked out of Stanford, fired from Apple, founded Pixar, came back to Apple. So he gives this commencement speech and he says, Like there's 3 lessons that he's learned that he wants to impart on these graduates. And the first one is you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to
Hmm.
believe in something, right? Gut, karma, destiny, that it's all going to sort of make sense. And so now as I sit here, and not that I'm done evolving or growing, but now as I sit here and I think about all the times I felt not enough, all the times I felt less than, all the times I felt like I'm unlovable or I'm doing something wrong. All of those things and all the negativity that came with that had to happen for this life to happen.
I love that. That's awesome. And, this is a very taboo topic in South Asian households. I have a younger sister, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. Trust me. You're not the first, and you're probably not the last that I've heard this from. If if you could go back and tell your younger self, unmarried self, being from a South Asian household, and there are definitely other South Asian women, even men. I will even say men because I know there's men out there that are also struggling. What advice, besides looking backwards, making
Mm-hmm.
sense of what Steve Jobs says, what piece of advice would you have for that population?
Love yourself first.
Hmm. Why?
Why? Because if you don't love you, no one else will.
Hmm.
No one else is going to fix you. And by the way, you're not going to fix anyone else. It has to come from within. If you feel like there's something within you that you don't like, change it. If there's
Hmm.
something about you that you believe in and it aligns with your morals and values and this is who you are, own it.
Hmm.
You don't need to change for anyone, but you need to love yourself first.
I love that. That's very solid advice. That's very solid. Okay. So now as we're starting to get towards the end of the show, these are the questions I usually ask my guests on the show. But I'm gonna change it up just a hair because I think we've had a pretty introspective conversation. So my first question is, who is Amrita Patel in one word? And your parents, how would they describe you in one word?
I think that we would all use the word passionate
Hmm. Why?
because my birthday is 11/11 and I was born at 11/11, which makes me very Scorpio, and I'm like very passionate and very loyal, and I would do anything for the things that I believe in and the people that I love and the things that are important to me no matter what. I told you love shows up, right? And that comes from a place of believing in myself, in what I think is right, what I stand up for, and not backing down because that's what makes me me.
I love that. That makes sense. Now, if like I just watched The Christmas Carol the other day, as a live play, just because why not? Got some cool references in there. So, if you died one day, well, we all will at some point. What would it say on your gravestone besides the word passionate? And what would it say?
Lover of shoes.
Jeez, do
Oh
you
my
have an
gosh.
unknown shoe collection that we
Oh
don't
my
know about?
gosh. It's huge. People are like, oh, how do you unplug? How do you de stress? Aside from working out, like, what do you do? Oh my gosh, I buy shoes between patients all the time, nonstop. Oh, I love shoes.
I love it. So, okay, what is your most expensive pair of shoes then?
I have some Jimmy shoes that are probably 5 figures. No, they are. They're pretty high up there because they've got like Swarovski crystals on them or something. And by the
That's
way,
awesome.
I don't wear them. They sit on a shelf. They're called sitting shoes, so they only come out if I have to go to an event where I'm going to be sitting
Huh.
because they're not that comfortable, but they're pretty.
But they're really pretty. Huh. I swear, like I learned the most interesting things from people, and I just didn't even know that it could be a thing, but I guess it is a thing. Okay, super random. What are your thoughts on red bottoms?
They hurt. Oh gosh. I will tell you,
Overrated?
Louboutins are more painful than any of the shoes I own. They hurt
Really?
so much. They hurt so even the men's shoes hurt. My husband loves Jimmy Choo as well. And he had tried on like loafers. So men's shoes are flat with the red bottoms and they're not comfortable. They're very narrow and
Mm-hmm.
they hurt. No thank you.
Wow. So okay, I'm only gonna dive into this shoe part because I think this is totally about you, and I think this is so cool. If you could pick one pair of shoes then ever and only wear that shoe, what would it be and why? And I'll add a little bit of a challenge. It's got to be a shoe that you can wear in both the dental office, but also at like a nighttime event.
So I have a pair, and they'd have to be clean to be worn to a nighttime event. I have a pair of
Okay.
Valentino sneaks from dental school, and they're super comfortable because they're really worn, and I clean them so they don't look
Uh-huh.
dirty, but they're like nice sneaks. And so I wear them sometimes, like with a dress at an event.
Huh.
But I also wear them to work, and I won't give them up because they're like my dental school shoes.
So, I mean, is this something that's pretty common in Valentino shoes? Because I just learned about that brand. Funny enough, like my
I
fiance
don't
just
know
told me
because
about it.
they're so old, but I feel like they make some variation of this. They don't look like running shoes. They don't have laces. They kind of look like Keds, but but not like
Hmm.
that kind of low top.
I see. That's kind of cool, actually.
Hmm.
Man, like I swear, like that is so unique. But hey, I guess everyone has their little niches in life, so why not?
Shoes.
Shoes it is
Yep.
for you. Okay, last question. What is one parting final piece of advice you have for anybody about life? Like what is one thing that you know that you learned about and you could carry it on until the day that you pass away?
Can I have two?
Absolutely.
So the first one we're going to borrow from Kobe. If you're going to
Okay.
bet on anything or anyone, bet on yourself.
Okay.
And the second one is you literally lose nothing by going for it. So don't be afraid. Go for it.
Okay. Very cool, Dr. Patel. Hey, I mean, that's pretty much all I got for you. I mean,
So,
I don't try to take up too much of your time, but I try to extrapolate as much wisdom and knowledge and background from people because I think everyone has a unique story and something to tell.
mhm.
And that's the purpose of the podcast, and it's just really to get to know people and connect more people and make it feel less lonely in the world. Because with social media, there's a lot of bridges, but there's not enough connection on that. And that's really what it comes down to. Now, you also have your own podcast, right?
Yep,
Now,
Project
where
Confidence. It's Project Confidence, but confidence is spelled CONFI, dense, DENTS.
ah, oh,
Yep. So my day one dental school best friend and I launched a few months ago, and it's been awesome. We love it.
amazing. Well, hey, I will definitely tune into that one of these days. But what I will do in the meantime, I will get this going, and I hope that people can extrapolate a lot of knowledge from your introduction podcast.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And to everyone that is listening, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Mind, Body, and Roots. Be well.